not for all his youthful looks, he's not a millennial, right? So I, of course, don't look like one. So what we'll do is we'll make it more contextual, and this is an area where I would want participation from most of you here. This is a challenge most brands have in engaging the millennial generation that's coming up, that's already there, and then probably the millennial plus that's going to come up in the few years to come. You can call them digital natives, addicts, whatever you want to use the term, but they are a different problem to solve for many marketers, right? So they're fundamentally rewriting marketing rules and the traditional marketing models. Right? So through the discussion, what we wanted to achieve is we'll probably break this into three broad parts. First is there are some millennial myths that exist. A couple of studies that I have, one with Forbes, another one which is our own, a third one from Accenture, some which I can read out. Most of you as marketers in this local market, you can put your perspective around what's relevant to what we do here in India, right? And then the second part is where we can take that insight around a millennial shopper and get into taking what do we do to get an insight out of that, right? So the characteristics is what exists. What are the insights that we take out of that, and how do we do that? And that's where I'll probably have Anand talk through some of the, there are elements of technology, there are elements of how you do it, which is not technology, but this is mostly around what you want to do as a brand. And then finally, we could take that into a discussion around what do you do with those insights, right? That's probably the most challenging part in terms of picking up insights, knowing your consumer, and then translating them into marketing actions which are sustainable over a long term, right? So broadly, these three sections is what I would want this discussion to be. I'll probably open the discussion with a few pointers that I had, and some of it is story-centric. The easiest one is to always link it back to your children, right? At my age, you'll have children who are teenagers, so who are digitally born. In some cases, I would assume that they were probably born with a phone stuck on their fingers, right? So in the context of what they do, how they talk to you, how do they engage with you, all of us would have experiences around a story around a millennial's behavioral habit of using his digital platform as his home versus everything else, which is an extension to that world, right? In some sense, they live in that small world of digital world. Not to say that they are unsocial people. They're actually probably more engaged, more knowledgeable than probably the previous two generations. But they have a home, which is where they're very comfortable with. And that then extends into the various boundaries and the physical world that we live in, right? Especially the world of retailers. So what do we do to engage them? Right? It's a big issue. Anand, I don't know, you wanted to talk about a story on Vodafone.
Yeah. So there's this big thing that's been going around over the last 2 days. Better? Yeah. Okay. So over the last 2 days, which is in Romania of all places, and they call it the Sunday Grannies. I don't know if any of you have read about the whole buzz that Vodafone has created. So essentially, who are the Sunday Grannies, right? So Vodafone tried to create this whole platform where they said that how do we try and get two key market segments. One were the people who were the seniors and the penetration that they didn't have in that market segment, and the millennials. And they came out with this concept where they had trained two grandmothers. They did a focus group. They found two grandmothers, and these were people who had gone through a fairly large family, living alone now, however, because they'd gone through a fairly traumatic past, where the spirit of family was very big, right? Feeding people, and Eastern Europe food is very big. So they taught them how to use Facebook, and what these two grannies did is they actually came out with Sunday lunch recipes and buffets and so on and so forth. And when they put it up into the world, right, surprisingly, there were a bunch of these youngsters or the millennials who really lapped this up, right? And because this whole concept of having food very close to tradition, very close to somebody who they, related with grandparents, and all of a sudden, over a period of, it's just been 2 or 3 weeks since this whole hype has started. They've been able to actually monetize the entire thing. So, if you actually look at Vodafone, they'll actually tell you that it's led to sales of data plans. It's helped them sell more smartphones. It's helped them get some crazy number of million impressions in the world. The whole concept is, I think what they also alluded to is that we didn't know this would take. We really didn't know that something which was from two completely different parts of the cross section of how we would classify people would actually find such a big taker in the marketplace, right? And it actually brings down to the point, is there a real definition of or a characteristic of a millennial, right? Because you always would try and put them into some form, shape, demographic, preference, etc., etc. But something like this just keeps breaking the myth that you really can't define them in a traditional manner or one particular form, so to speak, right? And that's where we wanted to start the conversation with that. You could probably have somebody who's willing to pay full price on a particular item as long as the need is that I need it today, versus somebody who you could give a fantastic offer but will not bite it if it's the first time he's looking for it. No matter how great the deal is, no matter how big the demand is or how great the demand is, he or she will want to do his own research, want to take peer reviews, will want all of that before they actually bite the bullet, right? Which essentially brings us to the point that it's an ongoing cycle, right? There's an engagement piece, there's a piece which talks about analytical insights, there's a piece of optimization, but the whole factor is that it has to get performed continuously and immediately as we as marketeers, right? So that was the point that I wanted to make as opening comments. But if anybody else has experiences, or if you think there's something that you've seen in the marketplace which helps define or characterize these millennials, we'd love to hear it from you as well, right? Just get some thoughts
So
going
one
on
of one of the ones which we normally hear about is millennials are all about online. Now that's a stated myth. That so any inputs that any of you want to share on that? What percentage of millennials do you really think millennials are all about online? Is that what your brand experiences have been? Have you been impacted by the online onslaught, as I had somebody talk about that in the earlier session?
I think it boils down to speed when it comes to millennials.
Yeah, it's instant gratification.
How instantly gratifying that experience is vis-a-vis whether it's online or offline. So if I'm asking you to get into the store, how quickly can I buy this product and get out of the checkout process? If I'm going to stand in the queue, wait for 10 minutes to get that thing done, then probably I don't like that experience, and probably I would not come back to your store again.
Yep.
So I think speed kind of defines millennials.
Okay, so it's more speed than online. You're essentially linking it back to a characteristic around
Also,
instant
I mean,
gratification.
we talk about online, but it is just, for me, the number of touch points have gone up.
Yep.
First it would be the neighbor, the auntie, the mom. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's the neighbor, the auntie, and 3 WhatsApp groups. So we
Yeah.
have just added 3 more people, so to say,
Yeah.
to already existing influencers. So
Right.
what has changed is the number of influencers, and what is difficult is to figure out who is the influencer now, right? Because your aunt and a mom and the WhatsApp group probably have the same amount of say in your decision in buying
Absolutely.
something or going to a particular store or doing something online. So if somebody is able to identify these influencers, okay, you're just adding 3 more influencers to.
But is that a millennial characteristic, in a sense that isn't it something that is cross generational?
It depends. So if we're talking about kids, and my daughter is still not a teenager, but she's, as you said, she was born with an iPad and stuck to her fingers, right? So she's post-millennial, right? She influences her grandmom's decision, okay, using her iPad.
Yeah.
So my mom is kind of influenced by the modern technology, okay, but through my daughter, right? So her influential group has also gone up via my daughter, thanks to Google. So that is how it is. I mean, it does impact everybody, maybe not first hand, maybe second hand, maybe third hand, but it does impact everybody.
Okay. So one of the survey studies that I have here, which there was a survey done around about 6,000 odd consumers, about 1/3 of which was millennials, and then the other two were the baby boomers and Generation X. So it was all about, like you said, instant gratification. It was not necessarily online. The survey had almost the same set of results across all the three generations in the context of online being a convenience. They did different things online, but what made their decision to buy was their ability to get that thing early and at speed, right? So that, in a sense, retailers who were able to, they associated more with retailers who were able to allow them to do a 2-hour pickup from a store nearby, or give them a visibility of what is available where and where they could get it done today versus waiting for 2 days and the shipping to happen. They were more than willing to move from the online to offline, right? So we talk of, and that of course, to a retailer, any footfall that falls into your store is an opportunity beyond that one specific engagement, right? So that's a touch point for you to do a lot more. And they were perfectly okay with that. So that was what one of the surveys that we showed, and I think in the context of our country, because this was cross-generational, what we did about 12 countries, India was one of them, India, China, Korea, so we had Australia, so it did have a context of the developed and the developing world, and it was instant gratification driving consumer decision in the millennials, and it's being very similar across the others, right?
So they are also very curious. They live in Google of the world. So everything they want to know, and or the cow concept. Like they want.
Are you from Flipkart? No, sorry, Amazon, right? Sorry.
So basically, and also they don't have, like they need now. So if you're not there when they need it, they know they can find the options.
They can find the options.
Yeah. So you need to be there, and also it's not like, I think they're also getting slowly. They want to go more in that. They want to be social selfie of the world. Means anything what they go, they want to share it.
Yeah.
They want to have comments. I was reading, now people are thinking 2019 it will be selfie-driven travel package. So more selfie stuff. Like you get, wireless there, a lot of other stuff. So again, in 2019 they are saying new travel industry will start, which is like very selfie-driven.
Okay.
So they will be different. And the mobile, because of, especially in India, everyone is connected, especially all the millennials.
Yeah.
So that means basically you need to be present there all the time.
Yeah. So one of the other things that came out was we had about 70% of these millennials actually demanding an integrated, seamless experience across these channels, right? Not just wanting to talk about the fact that it could be done online, but the fact that when they wanted to, fulfill that instant gratification getting into the store, the ability of the store or the store associate to be able to link with his search or link with his behavior that he had already, shared online, to be relevant and made available, so that when he gets there, they take that point of, I know you searched for these 4 other things. Why don't you want to link that, right? So they wanted to bring that integration between various channels as a key differentiator, and that was distinctly different compared to the other two generations. The demand for an integrated, seamless experience was by far largely a millennial behavior, right? Versus the others, which were they wanted convenience, and that convenience and completion of the experience was very fast compared to looking at a seamlessness of the experience. Maybe I'll take your cue there and bring to the second part, which is typically around loyalty, right? Millennials and loyalty don't go together, right? Now, in some sense, at the same time, when they demand seamless experience, is there any opinion that is there, right? I know there are divided house. This is completely divided house. The survey gives me a fairly interesting point of view, but would want to hear from anyone here.
I think one of the things that I realized that the loyalty systems that we are using today in the retail sector are still very age-old, same point-based
Point
systems.
Systems, yeah.
It just doesn't work for millennials.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have time to accumulate 3,500 points. Vis-a-vis, after that, I'm going to get a USB stick.
Yep.
So if that's what I'm going to get from payback, I really don't want those loyalty points. Second thing is that, I mean, if you're accumulating those points, if that can be replicated with an experience,
Right.
rather than some sort of physical product, that will really trump the card for millennials, because they're not looking for physical product. They have disposable income from through their parents who are in 30s and 40s. They have a lot of money to kind of spare on those products to consume. They want experience.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that if 4 of your friends were going for a movie, hey, let me just throw in a spa package for you, that would probably kill it for him, but not a USB stick. So I think the loyalty system has to kind of disrupt and get changed with the time, and that's
Yeah.
the time is now.
So you bring a fairly interesting point. I'll talk about the survey that came about here. So essentially, it did talk about the fact that they're as loyal or as disloyal as any other generation. But what the demand of loyalty is very different. So that's where the difference is. Where millennial loyalty demand is more around more experience centric.
So
Right.
I'll give you an example. So I had an opportunity to we worked together.
Okay.
And at some point of time, a few years back at Reliance branch, and about loyalty, right? So for diesel, okay, we turned the loyalty program and said, there's no point in distributing points for buying a 30,000 jeans, because somebody who's buying a 30,000 jeans doesn't care about 100 points, right?
Sure.
So we turned the loyalty program and said, why don't we give as a reward for reaching a particular number in sales, irrespective of the points. A champagne which came from Renzo Rosso, who is the founder of Diesel,
Yep.
from his vineyard, right?
Wow.
Or a scarf that was exclusively designed, 100 pieces were designed by Renzo Rosso, which he doesn't do a lot
Very
now.
often,
Somebody else designs for Renzo. So Renzo designed this 100 scarves only for India, and those were distributed in India for the topmost buyers of diesel products. I think that gave more kick to the diesel buyer.
Right.
And increase the affinity towards the brand than having to send mailers and reconfirming 1,000 points and 2,000 points and 2 lakh shopping kiya to 5,000 points. It doesn't work. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
So fundamentally, I guess, again, going back to what do we as retailers need to think through is around the fact that are our loyalty systems going to be aligned to how these millennials think, right? That in order to drive loyalty, one of the the insight essentially tells you is what do you do to engage them, right? So they would prefer more personalized engagement as a loyalty factor than certain. Of course, they still love coupons,
Yeah.
right? They still love coupons. They like to get discounts. They like deals. They like offers. It's high on the agenda. But loyalty is not defined by that. Loyalty is defined by the experience that you can personalize for them.
I think they are looking more for variety. I come from a different industry, so I am from Lavasa, so we are a city, and we
Right.
are trying to create something.
And,
Okay, so when people come to Lavasa once, how do I get it again?
Yep.
So there is no loyalty which is only for Lavasa. If I create something more, if I have another experience, then they would want to come and experience that. They are not
Right.
just going to come because I have to go to Lavasa, or I have a house in Lavasa. Still, they get frustrated.
Right.
People who are working with Lavasa, their kids also, they don't want to come after they have come thrice.
Yep.
They tell Papa, I don't want to come. I want to go to Mahabaleshwar. I want to go to any other place. Though maybe Lavasa is still more beautiful than Mahabaleshwar.
All right.
So it's about variety. What is the new experience you are giving?
Right.
Okay, and they are not afraid of saying that, okay, I don't want this. Okay, I mean my daughter also is 10, so she says, okay, Papa, what is big deal?
It's
What's
like
the big deal? I don't like it. Okay, So they are not afraid of telling that they are not loyal. They don't want to be loyal.
So fundamentally, it could still be driven through an experience which
Yeah, of
they would welcome, right?
Yeah.
So I guess more
So
than the
different
location,
experience
different
is
if you
something
drive
which
more
they keep
experience. Maybe
looking
if
at,
you yeah, sure.
Definition of loyalty for this generation has changed, not only for product, offline, online, but for relationship also.
That's right.
Let's say I have a different girlfriend, today I have a different one. So things have changed.
So you're speaking for yourself.
So coming to I have representing Jubilant Footworks,
Yeah.
I have a brand called Dunkin'.
Yes.
So if you look at your strategy, wherever we open in a new cities like Mumbai or Bangalore, we have a plan that we give a coupon to 200 new